opinion, they would become more aggressive than under Hitler. And because of their economic power, they're able to do that. And he had some quotations to back it up, which I don't remember what they were. I'd never heard that before. But it could be. I mean, it's opinion, but it could definitely be by the sound of something like this.
Right, well, yes, it's, I guess, you know, regardless of the organization, you know, man is very focused on his own rights and his own freedoms, and it'll be a tough realization that that's not the order of the day.
What he also said was that most of the Western nations, like they vowed after World War II, never to allow Germany to rise to that level again, and most believe that they never would, that the people have learned their lesson, but he's saying, for whatever reason, he's saying that no, they haven't.
It'll happen again.
It's interesting to watch. I'm not saying that's what I think.
Yeah.
Just
what's
right
right
on
on.
this.
So he's thinking that they'll drive the invasion from the north?
I don't think so. I think he's just saying that they will be quite an aggressor in Europe, that they will basically become rulers over the poor nations like, you know, Greece and Italy and Spain, and therefore they will then take a leadership role, which we know they're already there financially.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ideologically they'll take a leadership role and will become much more aggressive than most of us have thought.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they'll decide that since they were the ones who are in the best shape financially, that they are the master race after all.
Well, he didn't use those terms, but I mean, it's just interesting that the guess would come out, and I never thought of it that way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely know it coming out of the Second World War, the I guess the statements against Germany, and once they were kind of put in their place, in quotes, I guess.
But they were put down good, but people believe that they would have learned the lesson. But we get new generations that gain that same superiority complex services, which they know it's there. I mean, there's extremely right-wing swastika.
Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah.
how strong they are, I don't know.
Yeah. We'll keep our eyes on the
Just
events.
something to
Yeah.
be aware of that could happen.
Right. Well, the next paragraph is paragraph 4, entitled "The Third Angel Signifies the Final Triumph by the Christ Body over Corporate Sin." So we'll take a look at what this paragraph has to say. "Thus, in the great day of God Almighty, by the invincible troops of the King of Israel, is the beast and false prophet Polity taken and cast alive into a lake of fire. This third angel judgment, which, like the second, belongs to the plagues of the seventh vial, slays Daniel's fourth beast, destroys its body politic, and gives him to the burning flame." Chapter 7, verse 11. "By this process, the Latin Gothic superstition is eradicated from the kingdoms of Western Europe, which by conquest become the kingdoms of Yahweh and of Christ." Chapter 11:15. "The third angel judgments, however, are not expended to this result. Their smoke continues to ascend to cycles of cycles, or courses of time which constitute what is commonly styled the millennium, because it is a period of 1,000 years' duration. The smoke of the third angel torment continues to ascend to the establishment of the ceremony of the fullness of the times, by which time there will be no more Latin and Greek Catholics, Protestants and Muslims to be subdued. This will be a glorious and blessed consummation of the war of the great day of God Almighty, in which Israel will have done valiantly," Numbers 24:18, "chasing their enemies who fall before them by the sword." 5 chasing 100, and 100 of them putting 10,000 to flight. Leviticus 26:8. So this phase of divine judgments on nations and the world is the last, just preceding the establishment of the millennium. So we'll just take a look here at these quotes. So Daniel 7 verse 11. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. Here we can see the prophecy of this beast being given to judgment. Also, the quote here, become the kingdoms of Yahweh and of Christ. Which this is again Daniel 11 verse 15. No, it is Revelation 11 verse 15. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. You know, this seventh angel has the seventh seal and the seventh trumpet. I guess this is the seventh trumpet. I'll speak of the completion of the establishment of Christ's kingdom in the final day before his commencement of the kingdom. So. Numbers 24 and 18. And Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. So I don't know the context where this is. This is talking in the town of Balaam here. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Sheth. So we can see the context in which that's spoken here. Obviously prophesying of Christ in the time when Israel will have control of its enemies.
Verse 19 as well.
19, out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. So yeah, we can see that's pointing forward to the time when Jerusalem will be controlled by Christ. Which right now we're talking about multiple state reigns and all kinds of confusion going on. So.
You think that's what Balaam was saying to Balak all
Yes.
those years ago?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Gordon?
The Spirit is inspiring to say that through the man. You may not have really even understood what he was saying. But it's interesting, and again, I saw a brand new little I watched this morning, and he was commenting that Jerusalem is a Hebrew name, even though it's the Arabs of main capital, they still call it Jerusalem. It's not an Arab, it's not a Gentile name, it's a Jewish name. It's stuck. But he was also commenting, this is kind of going off back a little on the reading here. He was also saying that he kind of looks for Iran, which is Persia, and Syria. Because of the troubles that are happening in Syria, they almost think that Israel is likely to go against the ships of Iran, which have advanced and dealt back Syria, the rulership of Syria has to go, and they will basically implode, but this will be part of it, where Israel attacks the ships of Iran, which will bring them, of course, down. They'll be ready to fight.
Right.
And kind of feels that Turkey is more going to be focused on the powers north of them rather than so much the south.
Yeah.
So these are opinions only.
Well,
It's interesting.
we know the northern host will come to Turkey first, right? So
Yes.
and down to Egypt. So.
If there's a little bit of a power vacuum there, which there is, and Turkey seems to be claiming it, Russia may come down and say, that's ours. Kind of come down into Turkey and occupy. So it's hard to say. I mean, this is, until it happens, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But
Right.
he does back it up with quotations. Of course, there is take home, but it sounds very likely.
Yeah. Sid?
Something I noticed in the readings the other night was it seemed to be taking great pains to describe. It was probably Ezekiel 38, maybe? Taking great pains to describe the burning of the weapons. 39. And, I sort of heard it passed off, well, that's just the destruction of the weapons, and the weapons of their day were swords and wood and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yet, it talks about them. They don't have to go out and gather wood for their fires because there's so much wood there from these weapons to be burnt.
2 years. Isn't it?
Yeah, and I thought, that's an awful lot of trouble to go to
say that.
describe
A simple.
about 2 or 3 times. It's affirmed, it's brought up about the burning and the wood, and I'm thinking, just what is the reason why
That's it.
there's so much emphasis placed on that? It seems to me, for some reason, that there must be going to be a lot of wooden weapons. The only thing I can think of course, if you totally destroy the fleet of stuff that they have now, maybe they're going to have to resort to something else. And I'm not sure. Thinking back now, I'm not sure which battle that is in, whether it's in the first battle or the second one. Where the nations are all gathered against Christ with the Catholics behind them. But I thought it would be the first one because it talks, more or less about the northern host, the king of the north. But I just thought that was really quite interesting how that it just kept coming back. You think, oh well, okay, maybe again wood.
Right.
It's like, what's the deal? It's almost like it's trying to tell us something.
Right. Probably is. Gordon?
There's no doubt it's there for a reason. I'm just thinking, though, it's possible that because of the language and the translation, the wood just stands for fuel. So it could be just like meat or bread stands for a meal. It could be a reference to fuel, which those tanks now carry just massive amounts of diesel fuel. Not that out for a long time. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not wood. Just possibility.
Right.
Could be.
Years ago, and I'm not just sure how many, like I'm thinking 15 or 20 years ago, there was talk about very hard wood that was developed, and I'm sure that it was in Russia, that they had been building some of their weapons with that wood. And I remember Ed bringing it up in the lecture, that to get in through under the radar, all these done in wood would be a wonderful ability. And also Russia, they had, around that time they talked about the horses. How many horses there are in Russia? And he said, can you imagine what it would be like if they came through and down through Turkey and there, and they were already in the Middle East with all those weapons and maybe horses? Would be totally unexpected.
Right. Undetectable and dead.
Yeah, I think I forget where I heard it, whether it was someone here or when we were visiting. They can make tanks now that are visible. They blend in technology with background and it just disappears.
Oh, they have like imagery or something.
Yeah,
really
it's just, it covers it's the surface blend with the surroundings and you can't even see it.
Yeah. Good.
The thing is too, like, the radar picks up, basically metal that you get, like, now they got drones and satellites and that, which use imaging. But again, you know, that could also be fooled. So, yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting to open our minds to these possibilities because we don't know exactly how to be.
It probably signals the desperation that's going to mark these times where man is going to be driven to use every last ounce of creativity he has. I mean, you know, the paragraphs, particularly what you would have taken last week there, they describe a desperation, unprecedented desperation on the part of the nations to band together and to destroy Christ. And when you look at the kind of massive destruction that's going to happen, nothing is going to be as they, or even we, expect it to be, as far as their abilities and what they're going to be using and how they're going to do all of this. Everything's going to change, and the level of stress, the level of fear, and the desperation with which they approach this thing is going to be unreal. And if their weapons of metal and technology are taken away, they'll be reduced to trench warfare with a sword if they have to. Because you've got to remember that to them, this once you get past the first battles, which are mostly political and economical in nature, then you get this leadership of the church and this fight against the Antichrist, and these people are afraid that Satan's taking over the world. They're gonna just do everything out of absolute desperation.
Really working this over, but it's so interesting because we're right at the cusp, really. But I think another thing, and this is not on the military, although it could end up there, but on the military level, this is on a civilian level. You see these protests in the streets against Wall Street. Basically, the people exerting their power against capitalism and corporations, which is, it's overdue, actually, in my opinion.
Yes.
You see what corporations
They're the enemy of the people, yeah.
well, they can be definitely, and mostly are, because of their size, they can do things that nobody else, or no individual can do.
Yeah.
But it's not just the Arab Spring anymore. It's in Toronto, on Wall Street, Bay Street.
These protests and
Protests.
Yeah.
It's in Vancouver. It's in Calgary. This is the people, the sea and the waves roaring. It's because of the oppression, and it is. It's financial oppression that's going on.
legalized oppression.
Yeah, and I've been aware of it for a while, but a lot of people don't see it that way until they start to see the tremendous abuse of power by corporations. Yeah. There's no balance. Yeah. But now people are starting to stand up against it, which, in a sense, will probably destroy the economy even faster. you know, because people lose confidence in what's being profitable, pull their money out.
Who's going to put their money into the stock market if that's going on?
If there's a threat to the profit potential, they will pull back.
And then it's such a fickle system that it'll collapse on itself.
Absolutely.
It's based on perceived value,
Exactly.
not on real value.
Confidence only.
Yeah, that's it.
When you think about that, where does that not leave the papal system a golden opportunity to collect people behind them? You know, they'll say, you know, we got to get back to the church, back to the traditions that we've all grown up with,
the roots
that brought us to these countries and made us what we are, and get away from all this corporate stuff. And people will just say, yeah, let's go. And then, of course, when Christ shows up, they've got a target. It just plays right in.
No, I was noticing that when there were all the riots going on, I was just thinking, this is signs of it.
Yeah.
The cracks are starting to really show.
The old ship's getting pretty rusty.
It's as fundamental as 9/11, really. But it's not
Just
played that
dramatic.
way because it's
Yeah.
not as shocking.
No.
But it really is an aspect that, when you think about it, it's from a natural point of view, it's disaster.
With dissatisfaction, it's kind of like fire in peat moss. You know, it stays under. You know, society frowns on it. You know, the law suppresses it, so on and so forth. But you just need a catalyst. You just need something to open that up, and then all of a sudden, you find out that there's hundreds of thousands of people who have been quietly living a dissatisfied life, and all of a sudden they've got somebody to rally behind, and away they go.
Catalyst is the right word for that.
Yeah,
So the forest is on fire and you know where it came from.
yeah.
Not that we enjoy it. I mean, I don't give the impression that we enjoy it, the confusion and so forth, but we just have to be aware that this is the way it's supposed to be.
Well, we know things will have to get worse before they get better, so it's not that we take pleasure in things getting worse, but we know it's a means to an end, to something better, so.
It's a time of trouble, and it's going to take faith in our part to persevere, trust that we'll be looked after.
Now I get that email from that rancher in the States, and he's saying, like, there's a company and they have products that you can, you know, dry food and stuff that you can put away in your bomb shelter or your tornado shelter, and it'll keep for years, and be prepared. Things are gonna get ugly, and we should be putting aside something to survive through this.
These aren't.
Well, I don't know if we really can.
A lot of people thinking that way, and there is not unwise people thinking that way either. These are people that have their heads screwed on straight that are thinking this so they can see the signs, they just don't understand, I guess, what the end of it is, or what prophecy tells, or where you need to be in line with what God has to say. But they can see the signs and are preparing for it.
Kind of makes a person think, we of all people know what a wreck there's going to be, and it's not going to get just worse. It's going to get really worse. And you might say, in a sense, that we of all people should be making those preparations, and yet, really, we also know that making those preparations is probably vanity.
Just trusting in himself as opposed to putting trust in God.
Yeah.
We'll look at this last quote here, talking about how the children of Israel had basically God on their side and was able to overcome insurmountable odds. Leviticus 26:8. You shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword, and 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to fight, and your enemy shall fall before you by the sword. And we can just think back, those of us that, I guess, I wasn't there, but were able to witness what happened in the 7-Day War, and Israel's push to establish control over a significant portion of the Holy Land. Now that obviously God's hand was behind him in those endeavors. So, Gordon? Well, that's fine. I only got 4 paragraphs for the day and then we're out of material, so.
But I've noticed something else in Ezekiel 39 there, well, verse 2, I think it's in King James. Now, every version does not agree, but it speaks about a 6th part of the garment must remain. I've never noticed that before, but there is some doubt that that's literally what it means. I mean, there's other ways of translating that, but if that's the case, we know that 2/3 of Israel will be destroyed. That means 5/6 of Russia, or Russia
Destroyed.
company, will be destroyed, if that's what it means, which means double the mortality rate of Israel. But it also means there'll be a few who will turn. There will be some of those who will accept and acknowledge, when they're given a chance. So, there again, you got to separate between nations and peoples. Like, not all Russians will refuse, but as a nation they will, but not as individuals. I mean, I think there's Christians there now. The fellowship type.
Right,
Sure.
yeah.
I think there is.
Well, there are, yeah. There are.
Which doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that it's safe either.
Right.
It seems grasping.
Also in this chapter, I think it talks about, I'm just trying to remember the spot, but it talks about the time it takes to remove the corpses of God.
7 months right there.
What, the verse?
12.
Verse 12. Okay. So what exactly that means, I'm sure can be interpreted different ways, but regardless, the point is that one definition is for sure that it will be a significant work to cleanse the land of the corpses of God.
The people hired to go and find them, and it says just a couple verses down. So it's like an occupation, so you know it's going to be
Continual employment, yeah, verse 14.
Maybe the only
full-time.
employment. You know, it said, where's that in Zechariah where it says there's no work for raking men? Well, right now, you try to hire a bunch of people to go and pick up human bones and take them and bury them.
Who's gonna
And
handle
no
your
takers, you know.
Yeah.
They'll be rushing for the exit, so,
That tells us about the state of the
Yeah.
economic condition. That's the case.
Well, the county has to grant to them, complete halt, I think. Just exactly when. That'd be sometime during this, or immediately following maybe this Armageddon.
Or even before.
It could be.
We may be subjected to that
Yes.
as a final test in our day to try our faith, because we know that those that fear in God need to go through persecution, just as Christ did. Not, obviously not to the extent, but
Not for our destruction, but for our salvation.
yeah,
That's the important thing to remember. It's not to hurt us, it's to
yeah.
help us.
just say, Lord shall be saved, that's what by fire.
Yeah, that's it.
I was just looking at that 39:2.
Yeah.
I will turn thee back and leave but the 6th part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. And I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and will cause thine arrows to fall out of thy right hand. So it's almost like that 6th part is brought in for another round.
We were discussing that, and I didn't say it, but I think quite often with prophecy, it's not always chronological. but I don't know that that would necessarily mean that they have to be reduced before Armageddon. I think it could be a reference to what they'll end up being.
Well, we do know that it's a process of subduing of the nations, both the administrative bodies, and then secondly the grassroots opposition to Christ. There is a process, yeah. That's it.
Actually, you're right. None of the other versions that I have any sort support that sixth.
You know, that's what I mean.
What do the other versions say?
I will turn you around and drag you from the north until you reach the mountains of Israel. I will turn you about and drag you forward and bring you up from the uttermost parts of the earth.
That's the hooks. That's the hooks in the jaw.
Yeah, that part is definitely. I mean, that's why I said I don't know if it's right.
Yeah.
It's just King James translates it that way, so it's one possibility.
Yeah.
So again, when we're interpreting prophecy, we have to be very tentative about some of these things because we could go off on a tangent.
Keep an open mind about things until it's made clear.
Usually there's something else somewhere else that we don't notice that'll prove it or disprove it. And I haven't seen that, so I just noticed this. I mean, all the years I've been reading, I just noticed it, so it shows how much I was paying.
In the year, Sid?
Actually, the Strong's kind of tells you what's happened.
Yeah,
It says primitive group apparently to annihilate, translated by confusion with 83 under a different number as lead but the sixth part.
Yeah, there's not many Hebrew words in this verse. Like, I will turn thee back is one word. Shu. And lead but the sixth part is all one word. Like you say, shah, to annihilate. Will cause you to come up. It's all one word. Allah. That's it.
They are the same word. It sounds the same. Two words. The one that is the one that means annihilate, and the other that means to leave but the sixth part. But obviously they're two different words. I don't know. They don't look the same and written in the.
Oh, I see. That's the confusion. The 8341.
Yeah.
Translated by confusion. It says.
In the New King James fixes it.
Yeah.
So it's saying that the authorized text may have an error there.
Yeah.
But if the word annihilate is right, I mean, that could be interpreted as zero. I don't think it will
Yeah.
be, literally.
Annihilate.
I mean, as a nation, they will be annihilated, but as individuals, they have the same chance as anyone else to correct, to accept, I would think.
So,
Yeah, it would be making reference to what's going to sort of their destiny on a national basis rather than a personal.
Right.
okay, we will do the next paragraph here. Paragraph 5, the second and third angel phases accomplish a fourfold divine purpose. The purpose of the second and third angel judgments is fourfold. First, to avenge the blood of the saints and witness of Jesus shed by the spiritual and temporal rulers of the Greco-Latin nations. Secondly, to render vengeance to the rebellious who refused to obey the gospel announced in the first angel proclamation. Thirdly, to develop the mercy decreed by for Yahweh's land and the 12 tribes of Israel. And fourthly, that all adversaries being subdued and the surviving population of the earth may rejoice as the reconciled people of the Holy One of Israel, in whom and in his father Abraham, and all the families of the earth are blessed. This fourfold purpose is indicated in Deuteronomy 32, in the words, "To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Yahweh shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, when he seeth that their power is gone. See now that I, even I am he, the promised seed, and that there are none of Elohim, Elohim with me. I kill, and I make alive. I wound, and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I will lift up my hand to the heavens," Revelation 10, verse 5 and 6, "and say, I am the living one of the Olam, or millennium. If I whet my glittering sword, and my hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies, and I will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows and tribes drunk with blood, and my sword, Judah, shall devour flesh with the blood of the slain, and of the captives, from the beginning of the revenges upon the enemy. Therefore, O ye nations, his people cause ye to rejoice, for he will avenge the blood of the servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful to his land and to his people." So in summary, the mission of the second and third angel phases fulfills the Old Testament prophecy regarding the fourfold divine purpose to be accomplished by the Messiah, as in Deuteronomy 32, to avenge the persecution of the saints by the man of sin power, destruction of the rebels unresponsive to the divine first angel proclamation, to accomplish the divinely decreed purpose with the 12 tribes of Israel, and lastly, to reconcile to God all remaining remnants of people obedient to the divine will. Gordon?
Just thinking about something here, I don't know if it's a stretch or not, but it mentions Christ said to the Pharisees, "Ye shall see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom, yourselves cast out." And I'm just wondering, this number one, avenge the persecution of the saints by the man of sin power. I'm wondering if there's any of the churches of the man that will have sufficient responsibility to be raised, that knew the Lord's will, but determinedly covered it up, or you just wondered, like, how can Brother Thomas could uncover the gospel? How come they can't? If they really studied as much as they claim, how come they couldn't see it?
I think we're told. I'm sure it's the point you're going to make, Sid. Well, you can probably do a better job than I can, but it talks about in the parable of the husbandman of keeping the vineyard, when the keeper of the vineyard sent his servants and finally sent his own son, and the husbandman said, "Look, this is the heir." That it's a parable that speaks about the realization that they knew exactly who he was. That could, pertain to the Jewish leaders of the day. Probably also pertains to the Christian leaders of the latter day too.
If it's based on responsibility, that's the only criteria for resurrection. So
It
doesn't mean you have to be good.
Christology doesn't mean you're going to be raised or not raised.
You wonder how many of the Jesuit priesthood and that sort of will show up then at the judgment seat, because they have undertaken projects to steer the masses away from truth. Deliberately they've done it. No, it wasn't. Well, the encouragement of the evolution teachings has been at the hands of the Jesuit priesthood. There was something else I came across just recently that they had been responsible for, and
Something quite unbiblical.
yeah, something not just something that basically established them as antichrist.
Right.
It's
Contradiction predicting Christ.
Yeah, I forget now just what it was. I think I ran across it setting up for next station last week.
Oh, yes, yeah. I see. Gordon?
Just on another point, the fourth point there says the survival population of the earth may rejoice as reconciled people. One of the things, like the earth is overpopulated now, we know that. And if you did nothing else but destroy the percentages that are going to be destroyed, it would take the pressure off a lot. But, I mean, the assumptions that populations are working under are wrong, therefore it's causing war. Basically, man's assumptions about what is right and wrong are failed. So of course that plays into it big time. But I'm just saying, if you took and removed 40, 30, or 70% of the population, most of the problems would be fixed, and the desire to conquer each other for land and stuff would disappear.
There'll be abundance of resources.
Because the earth is still as abundant as ever, really.
Yeah.
But
Definitely could be more abundant too if it was due to mismanagement and waste.
Absolutely.
Occurs too.
It's politics, really.
Yeah. Greed. Yeah. So,
Just thinking back on the parable there, when you think about it, we don't know what level responsibility will be called at. That's God's prerogative. We can certainly expect the leadership, those who have been conscious of what they're doing and doing it anyhow, to be called up for their responsibility. What about people who have willingly gone far enough to recognize the truth for what it is, and that they should look into it further? Like, we don't know, and it's not really for us to say. But I was just thinking, if you take it back and you use the people of Christ's time, the Jews and the priesthood and the scribes and Pharisees and all those, as a microcosm of the world. Those people said, His blood be upon us, His blood be upon our heads. So they were making a conscious and responsible decision to follow the leader. And you just wonder at what level. I'm sure there's a level where God will say, well, people might have had a question in their mind but never really followed it up, and can't be held responsible for it. But
when are you responsible is what you're
yeah,
asking.
yeah, it's a tough question, because we can see people who have just never had the capacity to grasp it, and we can see other people who get so far and say, "Don't tell me anymore."
Yeah, I know I'm on the edge, or probably already at that point already you do know too much.
Yeah.
It's an awakening process, and then when you wake up, it's not a bright eyes and bushy tail. That's not always anyway, and
Yeah.
it's a awakening process, and I'm sure there is definitely a point when God will decide whether a person is responsible or on the way to be responsible. But it's a tough question for us
And of
to
course,
know.
there is talk of, there is evidence in the Bible of various levels of responsibility, a few stripes and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think we'll exhaust our time here, but it's good discussion, very interesting. interesting discussion, very pertinent to what we're seeing today.
It's just moving so fast in the world because of communication built in that mess. Like that's what you're saying about these Wall Street protests.
Yeah.
Through the internet, they can gather a crowd together. They just vaporize out of nowhere because they tweet or whatever.
Social media, yeah.
Confined to one language or anything. It's just so possible to cause unrest for good or for not good reasons.
Right. Yeah.
The only redeeming feature is that they say so far that the crowd has been very sort of sort of mainstream and not violent.
Right.
At least in Canada. But
Pinch their pockets a little more.
The more, it seems like they're more making a statement as opposed to trying to change the world.
yeah.
They're trying to make a statement though,
Yes,
in a
to draw awareness.
civil means. Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
And that's okay, really. I mean, that's democracy functioning as
Yeah.
it's supposed to.
As it's supposed to. Yes. Yeah.
But then it probably won't stop there.
Well,
That's
unless there's change, people will not be satisfied. So. Yeah.
And before time quickly it'll settle down again.
Yeah. Like you say, it's the fire in the moss and the peat moss, right?
Yeah.
It's still there though.
Corporations will do take over lip service to.
Well, let's put it into oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sugar it up some.
Spin it,
Yeah.